Welcome to our video on the 10 greatest natural disasters in history. These events have left a lasting impact on the world, causing widespread destruction and loss of life. From devastating tsunamis to massive earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, these disasters have shaped the course of history and serve as a reminder of the power of nature. In this video, we will take a closer look at some of the most destructive natural disasters in history, including the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, the 1931 China floods, and the 1970 Bola cyclone in Bangladesh. We will also explore the causes and effects of these disasters, and the efforts made by communities and governments to recover and rebuild. So join us as we delve into the top 10 greatest natural disasters in history. The 1600 Huayna eruption in Peru was one of the largest volcanic eruptions in South America during the past few centuries. The eruption occurred on February 19, 1600, at Huayna, a stratovolcano located in southern Peru. The eruption had a VI of 6, and it produced a large ash column that reached a height of around 100,000 feet and spread ash over a wide area. The eruption caused widespread destruction in the immediate vicinity of the volcano, with many villages and towns being buried under ash and volcanic debris. The eruption also produced a massive pyroclastic flow, which swept down the slopes of the volcano, killing people and livestock, and destroying crops and infrastructure. The death toll from the eruption is estimated to be around 2,500 people, with many more injured or left homeless. The eruption also had a significant impact on global climate, as the large amount of ash and volcanic gases released into the atmosphere caused a phenomenon known as volcanic winter. This led to a significant cooling of the global climate and to crop failures, famine, and disease in many parts of the world. The 1600 Huayna eruption is considered one of the most destructive volcanic eruptions in South America's history. It was one of the largest eruptions of the past 5,000 years, and the ash and debris from the eruption is still visible in the surrounding areas today. The eruption is still studied today by volcanologists and geologists to better understand the dynamics of volcanic eruptions and to improve the ability to predict and mitigate their effects. The 1755 Lisbon earthquake was a devastating natural disaster that occurred on November 1, 1755, in the Kingdom of Portugal. The earthquake had an estimated magnitude of 8.5 to 9.0 and occurred at 9:40 a.m. local time. The earthquake was felt throughout Portugal and Spain, as well as in other parts of Europe and Africa. The earthquake caused widespread damage and destruction in the city of Lisbon, with many buildings, homes, and infrastructure collapsing or being severely damaged. The tremors also triggered a tsunami and fires, which further added to the destruction. The death toll from the earthquake is estimated to be around 30,000 people, with many more injured or left homeless. The disaster also had a significant impact on the economy and society of Portugal, as the city of Lisbon was a major economic center at the time. The destruction caused by the earthquake and subsequent fires and tsunami led to a severe economic downturn and a decline in the country's power and influence. The earthquake also had a significant impact on the cultural and religious beliefs of the people of Portugal and Europe, as the disaster occurred on All Saints' Day, a major Catholic holiday. The fact that such a disaster occurred on such a holy day led many to question the existence and power of God, and it contributed to the growing skepticism and secularization of the 18th century. The 1887 Yellow River flood was a devastating natural disaster that occurred in China. The flood was caused by a breach in the dikes of the Yellow River, which is known for its tendency to flood. The breach occurred on September 9, 1887, near the city of Huayhuancu in Hunan province. The floodwaters rapidly spread, inundating the surrounding areas and causing widespread destruction. The floodwaters reached a height of up to 50 feet in some areas, and covered an area of around 21,000 square miles, affecting around 2 million people. The death toll from the flood is estimated to be around 900,000 people, with many more injured or left homeless. The flood caused widespread destruction of homes, crops, and infrastructure, making it difficult for people to recover from the disaster. The flood also caused famine, as crops were destroyed and food supplies were cut off. The destruction caused by the flood also led to the spread of disease, as the stagnant water provided a breeding ground for mosquitoes and other disease-carrying insects. The 1815 eruption of Mount Tambora in Indonesia was one of the largest volcanic eruptions in recorded history. The eruption occurred on April 10, 1815 and lasted for several days, during which time it released an enormous amount of ash, dust, and volcanic gases into the atmosphere. The eruption caused the mountain's summit to collapse, creating a caldera that is now 6 kilometers, 4 miles, wide and more than 1.5 kilometers, 0.9 miles, deep. The eruption also created a massive ash cloud that reached a height of 80 kilometers, 50 miles, and spread across the globe, leading to a phenomenon known as volcanic winter. The death toll from the eruption is estimated to be around 92,000 people, with most of the deaths caused by starvation and disease resulting from the destruction of crops and the disruption of trade and transportation. The eruption also had a significant impact on global weather patterns, causing temperatures to drop and leading to crop failures and famine in many parts of the world. The eruption caused widespread destruction in the immediate vicinity of the volcano, with many villages and towns being buried under ash and volcanic debris. It also caused tsunamis, lahars and pyroclastic flows, which further exacerbated the destruction caused by the eruption. The eruption was so powerful that it was heard 2,000 kilometers away, and ash from the eruption was found as far as 800 kilometers from the volcano. The eruption of Tambora is considered one of the most destructive volcanic eruptions in history, and its effects were felt around the world for years to come. The 1970 Bola cyclone was a devastating tropical cyclone that struck East Pakistan, now Bangladesh, on November 12, 1970. The storm made landfall on the coast of East Pakistan, specifically the Ganges Delta region, with winds of around 100 miles per hour. The cyclone caused widespread flooding and destruction throughout the region, with many villages and towns being completely submerged by the storm surge. The flooding and high winds destroyed homes, crops, and infrastructure, leaving many people homeless and without food or shelter. The official death toll from the storm is estimated to be around 300,000 people, with another 80,000 missing, but some estimates put the number as high as 500,000. The disaster affected around 10 million people and caused widespread famine and disease in the region, as a large portion of the population were dependent on agriculture and fishing, which were severely impacted by the storm. The government of Pakistan, now Bangladesh, was criticized for its slow response to the disaster and its lack of preparation for such a catastrophic event. The disaster was a major factor in the growing political unrest in East Pakistan, and ultimately led to the Bangladesh Liberation War and the creation of the independent state of Bangladesh in 1971. The 1976 Tangshan earthquake was a catastrophic magnitude 7.8 earthquake that struck the city of Tangshan in northeastern China on July 28, 1976. The earthquake occurred at 3:42 a.m. local time and lasted for about 15 seconds. The tremors caused widespread destruction and damage to the city, with most buildings, homes, and infrastructure collapsing or being severely damaged. The death toll from the earthquake is estimated to be around 240,000 people, with another 164,000 injured and more than 799,000 people left homeless. The city of Tangshan, which had a population of over 1 million people at the time, was almost completely destroyed, with over 97% of the buildings in the city being destroyed or severely damaged. The earthquake also caused significant damage to nearby towns and villages, as well as to factories, mines, and transportation networks in the region. The disaster also caused landslides, rockfalls, and other secondary hazards, which further hindered rescue and relief efforts. The Chinese government immediately responded to the disaster by launching a massive relief and reconstruction effort, with thousands of soldiers, medical personnel, and aid workers sent to the affected area. The government also set up refugee camps, provided medical care and food to those affected, and began the rebuilding of the city and surrounding areas. Despite the efforts, many people were left homeless and struggled to rebuild their lives in the aftermath of the disaster. The 1918 influenza pandemic, also known as the Spanish flu, was a global outbreak of influenza that occurred between 1918 and 1919. It is estimated that the virus infected 1/3 of the world's population, or 500 million people, and caused the deaths of an estimated 50 million people, making it one of the deadliest pandemics in human history. The virus was highly contagious and was spread rapidly through transportation networks and military troops during World War I. Symptoms included fever, cough, and fatigue, and it often progressed to pneumonia, which was the most common cause of death. The pandemic hit hardest in the final months of World War I, killing more people than the war itself. The 2010 Haiti earthquake was a catastrophic magnitude 7.0 MW earthquake, with an epicenter near the town of Liagagne, approximately 25 kilometers 16 miles west of Port-au-Prince, Haiti's capital. The earthquake occurred on January 12, 2010, at 16:53 local time and lasted for about 35 seconds. The tremors caused widespread damage and destruction in the Port-au-Prince metropolitan area, with buildings collapsing, roads becoming impassable, and communication systems failing. The earthquake caused an estimated 230,000 deaths and injured an additional 300,000 people. Over 1.5 million people were displaced and left homeless. Many hospitals and other medical facilities were destroyed or severely damaged, making it difficult to provide medical care to the injured. The disaster also caused significant damage to infrastructure and buildings, with many roads, bridges, and buildings being destroyed or severely damaged. The Presidential Palace, the National Assembly Building, the Port-au-Prince Cathedral, and the headquarters of the United Nations Stabilization Mission in Haiti, MINUSTAH, were among the buildings that were destroyed. The Haitian government and international aid organizations launched a massive relief effort in the aftermath of the earthquake, with aid workers, medical personnel, and supplies arriving from around the world to help with the recovery and rebuilding effort. However, the relief efforts were hindered by the damage to infrastructure, lack of resources, and logistical challenges in getting aid to those in need. The 1931 China floods, also known as the Central China Flood, was a natural disaster that occurred in the summer of 1931 in China. The floods were caused by heavy rainfall and the collapse of the dikes along the Yellow River, which runs through the middle of China. The floodwaters swept through the provinces of Hunan, Anhui, and Jiangsu, causing widespread destruction and loss of life. The collapse of the dikes was caused by a combination of factors, including poor maintenance and construction of the dikes, as well as increased rainfall in the region due to climate change. The floods affected an estimated 50 million people and covered an area of over 54,000 square miles. The flood caused severe damage to infrastructure, including roads, bridges, and buildings, making it difficult for rescue and aid workers to access affected areas. Thousands of villages were swept away, and an estimated 2 million people were left homeless. The disaster also had a severe impact on agriculture, with crops and livestock being destroyed, leading to food shortages and famine. The death toll from the floods is estimated to be around 145,000 people, but the exact number is not known as the government at the time did not release the official death toll. It was one of the deadliest natural disasters in China's history, and it took years for the affected communities to recover and rebuild. The 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami was a devastating natural disaster that occurred on December 26, 2004. It was caused by a massive 9.1 magnitude earthquake that struck off the coast of Sumatra, Indonesia. The earthquake, which is one of the largest ever recorded, caused the seafloor to shift and trigger a series of massive waves, or tsunamis, that radiated out across the Indian Ocean. The tsunami struck the coastlines of 14 countries, including Indonesia, Sri Lanka, India, Thailand, and Somalia. The waves reached heights of up to 100 feet in some areas, and caused extensive damage to coastal communities. In Indonesia, the hardest hit area was the province of Aceh, where over 170,000 people were killed and 500,000 were left homeless. In Sri Lanka, over 35,000 people were killed and over 1 million were left homeless. In India, over 12,000 people were killed and over 500,000 were left homeless. In Thailand, over 5,000 people were killed and over 8,000 were injured. The disaster also caused significant damage to infrastructure, including roads, bridges, and buildings, making it difficult for rescue and aid workers to access affected areas. The tsunami also affected the fishing and tourism industries in many of the affected countries. The disaster was one of the deadliest in recorded history and resulted in over 230,000 deaths. It also prompted an unprecedented global response, with aid and rescue workers from around the world flocking to the affected areas to provide assistance.